Lesson 5. Strengthening self-trust. Learning to follow what you see. Today's lesson is one of the most important pieces of this entire process because everything you've been invited into so far, entering the heart center, meeting an inner landscape, listening to symbolism, discerning ego from soul, all of it becomes truly transformative when you learn how to trust what you receive. Self-trust is the bridge between your inner world and your outer life. It's the place where vision becomes guidance, where the intuition you're seeking becomes direction you feel safe to follow, and where the inner truth becomes embodied, felt, sense, and then action. But trust is not something that you can think your way into, and it isn't something that you force. It's something that you build through relationship, and the relationship that you have with yourself, especially in terms of your vision and going within, is going to require time, energy, nourishment, and love, just like any other relationship in your life. So today we're going to explore how trust actually forms, how your intuition speaks, and how you can learn to follow what arises inside of these visioning journeys with more ease, more clarity, and more confidence. So let's begin with seeing trust as something that is felt, not a thought. Most people try to trust themselves with their mind. They try to figure out whether what they're sensing is real or imagined, and then they will try to compare, analyze, or use logic to induce confidence or surety. But true inner trust doesn't really come from thinking. It comes from feeling. I didn't trust that image of my soul dancing with my ego because I understood it. I trust it because it felt familiar. I trusted it because it responded to me in the vision. And you will start trusting your visions when you feel that familiar feeling, when you start responding to what you see, and in turn, the vision responds back to you. You trust it because the more you return to your inner vision, the more it becomes revealed, the more curiosity it evokes, and hopefully the more you feel drawn to the practice. So your inner world becomes trustworthy through this relationship, through a commitment to showing up, slowing down into presence, through listening, and again, receiving. And when you are in this place of receiving, intending to receive, the first impression, the first thing that you perceive is almost always the truest. So when you're in your vision, when you're going within, if you're asking a question or if you're listening to one of the guided journeys that's created for you, the first symbol, the first landscape, the first shift in landscape, the first sensation in your body, the first image, color, knowing, animal, presence that appears is something that you can almost always attune to being the truest for where you are in that moment. Because that first impression really rises up from the subconscious. There isn't actually much time for you to think about it anyway. So before the mind has a chance to interfere, before fear can cloud truth, before that doubt can pull you away from yourself, in this work, the trust often just looks like follow the image, the first feeling, and allow yourself to say yes to whatever it is you're seeing. Now, a wonderful analogy I like to use that helps you further understand this concept of following the image, following the feeling, is imagine yourself sitting down to watch a movie that you've never seen before. So you sit down, you press play, and the opening scene appears. Maybe it's the ocean or atop of the mountain, a person sitting on the bench. It's a single detail. Now, you don't immediately pause the movie and say, I don't understand, or wait, I need the whole plot right now. You don't demand that the ending reveal itself in the first 5 seconds. You don't even demand that the next scene reveal itself. You don't decide the meaning or maybe even how you feel about it before anything else unfolds. You are watching. And envisioning, it works the same way. An image appears in your landscape, a color, an object, a path, a feeling. You may not know what it means yet. You may not know where it's leading, and you may not understand even the plot of what you're seeing. But your job isn't to force meaning. It's not even to see. Your job is to stay present with it, to stay present with yourself, the way you would stay with the opening scene of a movie. Because when you keep watching, when you keep letting the images unfold naturally, or you keep following the feeling, following the image, the next scene is going to appear. The guide will walk in. The environment will shift. Emotion will rise. The story will deepen. Things will start to connect. And eventually, it makes sense. Whether it's in the mind or in the body or spiritually, you have an experience. And this wasn't because you analyzed it or you tried to control it. It was because you just allowed it to reveal itself in its own timing. And your inner world works this way when you turn towards it to communicate. So trusting is letting what you see be what you see. And also trusting if you want it, then follow that. The same goes for hearing a no. No, not that, or something else. In every one of my meditations here on Insight Timer, I'm providing a path for you to follow. When you see something different, it's important to listen to that and to follow the vision that you do see. Now, one of the clearest forms of truth that the body can give you is a visceral no. And there are a few different no's that we're going to talk about here. But a visceral no is typically not a thought. It's not a preference. There's no hesitation or pause. It is a felt response in your system. It often just feels very immediate and unmistakable that your inner world is just saying, no, this is not for me. And in some cases, a visceral no isn't just telling you what you don't want, but it's pointing you towards what you do. Now, it's important to note here that when we're coming into a place of awareness and self-trust, we also want to invite in radical self-honesty. And a part of doing this is learning how to discern a visceral, trusted no from resistance and avoidance, as well as a growth edge. So these three sensations can feel very similar on the surface, but they carry entirely different truths, and your heart center can help you tell them apart. So let's define a visceral no as protective wisdom, when it really feels like a response and not a reaction. When you feel like your soul is saying, this does not align with who I am. This does not align with my path. It's final. It doesn't wobble and it doesn't confuse you. So that is a protective wisdom no. Now, avoidance or resistance. Avoidance and resistance is typically fear without depth. Avoidance comes from the mind more than the body, and it looks like consciously stepping away from yourself or your experience. And this visioning practice requires intimacy with yourself, and the nervous system might need time to feel safe with that. So how to discern whether or not you're in this reactive avoidant place is to really pay attention to the inner pushback that may arise as your heart center begins to reveal something. So this can look like irritation. this isn't working, sudden judgment of the practice, this is stupid, pressure to get an answer right now, I didn't see anything, she's moving too fast, overthinking, trying to control what you're seeing, not being able to relax into yourself, maybe even getting frustrated or just wanting to quit. Resistance and avoidance is very often not a true no, but a protective habit that's trying to keep you from feeling maybe something tender or something new, or just that anxiety that is very natural and normal that we can get when we are being asked to be quiet and sit with ourselves. So now let's talk about a growth edge. A growth edge is expansion. It might be wrapped in discomfort, but it is asking you to move into a place that doesn't really feel great. It brings a sensation. It could be intense, but its quality is different because it feels more like a stretching or an opening and contracting at the same time. It's more of an emotional pressure and push. It's not necessarily the feeling of danger. It's like that feeling of being kind of nervous before you jump or leap. It can also feel a little bit like fear and excitement intertwined. And you can feel resistance and avoidance when you're on a growth edge, but there should be a sense that there's something more meaningful on the other side, that you trust there's a reason for walking to that edge and moving forward. So it doesn't feel like a hard stop or a no. It feels more like a widening. It's like pulling you open a little bit more, and it's kind of uncomfortable. So think of a growth edge as pulling you forward. A visceral no, that intuitive no, actually pulls you more inward. And avoidance typically pulls you outward. So I want to give you some examples of how this could look in your landscape. So say you're walking in your landscape and you're being asked questions or you're asking questions, and suddenly your landscape darkens and your guide stops, steps back, turns away, your body contracts. This could be your visceral felt sense no. You're feeling, nope, this is not where we're going. Now, avoidance or resistance is going to look like possibly you're in the journey, your landscape's becoming foggy, your awareness shifts, you feel pulled out of your body. There's really no clarity, just only the desire to really escape and get out of there. Now, a growth edge. In the growth edge, your landscape might actually expand, become brighter, become more vivid. You can feel your guides close to you. Your body might still feel intensity, right? It's having a reaction, but it also feels possibility. So there can be fear at a growth edge, of course, but there's this pull forward, and it feels like the pull is coming from a loving place inside of you, even though that part of you knows there's other parts that might be scared. So think of avoidance and resistance, not that they're obstacles, but they're going to be other teachers. And it's okay if you get pulled out, if you don't want to do it, if you say this is stupid. Just remember that they're showing you where your nervous system needs more safety. Or maybe they're showing you where your ego needs more reassurance. And very often, more often than not, they're showing you where your soul is ready to actually lead you deeper. And recognizing these avoidance and resistance teachers is really a part of strengthening your self-trust. Because when you learn to notice these patterns inside of yourself, you are also going to learn how to recognize these patterns in your waking world. Because you're going to notice when you are resistant, when you are in fear, or when you're really being asked to do something that's scary. And because you're practicing this in your inner world, all of this is going to translate in your outer world and how you react or respond to life and other people. So everything that you do or do not experience inside of visioning is part of your process. Now let's shift into another self-trust anchor, because people always ask, how do I know I'm not making this up? And so here's the truth about making it up. One of the biggest barriers people face is the belief that if something comes through imagination, through this visioning practice, through meditation, then it isn't real. That making it up or wanting to see it means that it actually doesn't matter. But that idea is simply not true. Everything that you experience inside of yourself arises through an inner process. And in your day-to-day world, here's the reality. Your thoughts are made up. Your emotions can literally create images, sensations, and stories as you're walking around your world all of the time. Your memories even appear as pictures in your mind, and we never dismiss those. So why, when it comes to spiritual practice, intuition, spiritual ability, do we immediately dismiss the images, sensations, and impressions that can arise? Well, it's because most of us were conditioned to trust the mind, the external world, and logic. And really, we learned how to doubt anything that comes from imagination, intuition, or the inner realm. But imagination is not separate from intuition. It can serve as a bridge. And it is one of the primary ways that your subconscious, your emotional body, your soul can communicate with you through the images, the symbols, the subtle colors and impressions. That is the language of your inner world. And that language wants to be created. That language wants to be put together so it can be felt and seen. So when something arises, a symbol, an animal, or a shift in the landscape, it's not fake, especially if, again, you want to see it. It's your inner wisdom using the imagery to show you something that you're ready to see in that moment. Now, people doubt themselves because they're afraid of being wrong, or because they were taught not to trust their own inner experience in the world. They might have learned that logic is real and intuition is not. Also, people doubt themselves because the ego fears what it cannot control. And a lot of times, a person has never had space where their imagination is actually honored as intelligence. But in this work, in this practice, your imagination is not the enemy. It is part of the threshold. It's part of the doorway. And when you allow your first images to rise, you allow those sensations to come, you allow yourself to receive. You're letting the inner world speak in the only language it has in the moment. And this is how visioning works. And this is how the heart center communicates. It's how that guidance arises. So whether you're making it up or not, it's all being made and created for you and by you. So it is valid and it is real. Now let's talk about building trust through repetition. So we tapped into this earlier. Trust is built the same way any relationship is built. By showing up, by listening, by honoring what you hear, by getting curious about the things you don't want to hear, by giving space for truth to really land, by not abandoning yourself when doubt or fear appears, and by noticing what aligns and what doesn't. So the more you return to your inner landscape and your vision, the more you work with your guides, the more you ask questions, receive answers, the more you're going to begin to trust that this world within you is real. It is real, it is responsive, and it is deeply wise. It has the power to shift your perception. It has the power to shift your energy body. Your inner world becomes your greatest companion, your greatest teacher, and a place that you can return to again and again for guidance. And this is how the trust grows. So I want to take you through a short exercise. It's kind of like a spiritual flashcards, I like to think of it, to help you tune into your inner vision quickly and easily. Now, this isn't about getting the right image. This is just about learning to trust the first thing that arises, the way that your heart speaks before the mind jumps in. So remember here, don't overthink, don't analyze, just notice what appears and let it be enough. And what appears might be an actual visual, but it might be something else in the body or in the mind. So allow the questions to roll over you and just trust what comes up. So I'm going to move you quickly from your head to your heart. So coming into a place where you can close your eyes down for this exercise. And I want you to begin by just taking a really big deep breath in and exhale, letting go. And just keep breathing with your attention awareness on your breath. And then just breathe into that heart center, breathe into that heart space. See if you can conjure up the feeling of your intuition or your inner knowing. As your eyes are closed, you could even imagine seeing the spiral of your heart right behind your eyelids. That veil to your inner wisdom. And all you have to do is stay with your breath and be present. And I'm going to ask you these questions. Then I want you just to trust whatever you see or feel. When I say doorway, what do you see or feel? When I say path, what do you see or feel? When I say guide, what do you see or feel? When I say gift, what object or symbol appears? When I say truth, what image, feeling, or sensation appears? When I say, show me what your yes looks like, what arises first? When I say, the one who is afraid, what shape, presence, or part of you comes forward? When I say landscape, where are you in this moment? These questions were not a test to see how strong your vision was, and they weren't about interpreting anything that you saw. What they are for is to help you deepen into trust. into allowing yourself to receive symbols and feelings and images exactly as they want to arrive in you. And this is how your intuitive language strengthens. So I want to encourage you to come back to these questions. You could do them once in the morning, once in the afternoon, and once at night. And my guess is you'll have a different visioning experience each time. You could also do it once every day. You could answer these questions thinking about a very specific relationship in your life. Your answers are always going to shapeshift because every symbol and sensation and subtle shift in your inner world is part of the relationship that you're building with yourself. And it's not about some perfect interpretation or making something right or even making something meaningful. You're really learning how to receive from yourself without judgment, without pressure, and without forcing clarity. So the trust grows when you allow yourself to say yes to the first image or feeling. And when that first knowing appears, even if it's small, even if it doesn't make sense yet, that you've shown up for it. Now, a fun meditation that I have here on Insight Timer, it's a free track. It's called Connecting with Your Spirit Guides, a Shamanic Journey. And in the description, you'll see it says, meet your helping spirit guide to create a spell for love, joy, and manifestation. And this is a very highly guided journey that would be really fun for you to practice trusting what comes up. There's a lot of opportunity for you to vision and let your heart speak to you. So whether it's that meditation or another, I invite you deeper into your practice, and I'll see you in the next lesson.